By United States Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, Senator Cotton. Welcome back.
Hey, Hugh. It's good to be on with you.
First question has to be Governor Cuomo. The New York Post has a cover photo, Handsy Andy, of him accosting a young woman at a September 2019 wedding reception. Should he resign?
Well, Hugh, it looks like there are several serious and credible allegations against him. These are not like the fantastical allegations against Brett Kavanaugh 2 years ago. And I know there's an independent investigation underway now, but these allegations are fairly contemporaneous and made by young women who are apparently Democratic staffers and have no reason to have a political axe to grind seem credible.
My wife and I have a rule where there's one credible allegation, you don't really know. When there's two credible allegations, there are probably 10. Is that consistent with your experience with this?
Well, Hugh, I don't have a lot of personal experience with this.
I hope not. Good to hear that.
I've never been a lawyer or an HR office that had to manage these things. But I think you and your wife's standard is probably a pretty good rule of thumb. I think it stands up to reason and common sense.
All right. Now, Senator, let me talk to you about CPAC. I played a lot of your speech yesterday, along with the speeches of former President Trump, Secretary Pompeo, Ron DeSantis. You got a very warm reception. What is that? What is the difference between a CPAC crowd and a Republican primary? Is there one?
Well, obviously, we're a big diverse party, and we have some regional differences across the country as well. And the people who come to CPAC want to specifically hear about conservative ideas, conservative accomplishments, especially since this was in Florida. You probably had a little bit of a skew towards the Southeast and Florida. And I think a lot of people wanted to be there for former President Trump's debut appearance after leaving the White House on January 20th. But I think there's a lot of overlap between a CPAC crowd and your normal Republican voter. Not perfect overlap, of course, in some regional variations, but the consistent themes I heard there is that they want strong leaders who will stand up for America first and put our workers first, who will defend our borders, who will try to stop the rising crime wave, and who will make sure that America remains strong and respected in the world.
Now, Senator, you've been making an argument there and online that the national news media is afraid to touch, which is that President Biden sent signals and the people of Central America heard them, and they are marching towards our southern border in ever-increasing numbers. I mean, it's sort of an extraordinary rise from January to February, and I expect the same thing to happen from February to March. Is anybody covering that? It's like geometrical expansion of the problem.
Well, they're trying to minimize it as much as possible, but they can only minimize it so much, when you just look at the reality of what's happening on our southern border. I've been predicting since last fall that if Joe Biden became president, there would be a huge migrant surge at our border. You cannot promise the world amnesty and catch and release and open borders and even free health care, which the Democrats are putting into their Pelosi payoff bill this week, and not expect there to be a huge surge at the border. And we started seeing it happening in November, and it's only continued. I mean, we're in the middle of February, Hugh. Texas just suffered a brutal freezing winter storm, yet they have record numbers of migrants, to include unaccompanied children at the border. What does Joe Biden and his administration think it's going to be like in 60 days when it's warm in Mexico and Texas? That's why they need to reverse these policies immediately. You certainly don't need the Secretary of DHS going out, as he said yesterday, we're not saying don't come. We're just saying don't come now. I mean,
Wow.
They're saying come and we'll let you in.
Wow. Now, they have also opened a new center for unaccompanied minors in Texas. There are thousands of unaccompanied minors. I got in an argument with Jeff Sessions on the air about whether or not you separate unaccompanied minors from their parents. And I am hard on that policy. But I also noticed this new center has bars on the windows, too. Are we going to have outrage media coverage here like we did with President Trump?
Yeah, something tells me that they're going to be now known as unaccompanied migrant child playgrounds and classrooms, as opposed to kids in cages.
Yes.
But put aside the way the media portrays it, just look at the reality. We should not have a policy that encourages parents in Latin America to send their kids here without an adult, or if the adult comes with them, it's a human smuggler, a coyote who engages in all kinds of brutal exploitation of these kids. The policy should be, if you show up at our border and you claim asylum, you can have your asylum claim adjudicated in Mexico. That's what the Remain in Mexico policy was all about. It was a bilateral agreement with Mexico. We had similar agreements with Central American countries. Yet Joe Biden, the supposed internationalist, scrapped them on day one, not just offending our partners who had reached these agreements with us, but also encouraging this surge at our border.
Before I go back and cover the bill that is in front of you today, I want to do one more CPAC question. The narrative, as determined by Manhattan Beltway media elites, is that President Trump was going to go to CPAC and split the Republican Party. He did nothing of the sort. And the Republican Party is, in fact, not split. But the narrative is he split the Republican Party. What do you make of that, Senator Cotton?
Well, Hugh, I mean, when the media gets a story that it wants to write, it kind of writes a story regardless of what happened. I mean, it reminds me of the speech that he gave at Mount Rushmore last year on 4th of July, and all the headlines said it was dark and divisive. And they clearly had those stories written before he gave a speech, because the speech was a very uplifting retelling of American history and a defense of American history and the American heritage. Same thing happened, I think, going into CPAC. And look, the president went there and explicitly said not only is he not starting a third party, he never even thought about starting a third party, that it's all fake news.
It's just amazing to me, but we still see that story, and I'll write about that later this week. Now let me go to this $1.9 trillion bill. The Wall Street Journal today included something that made me stand up and say, huh? The parliamentarian on Monday, the Senate parliamentarian, ruled in favor of Democrats, including health care subsidies for laid-off workers and support for multi-employer pensions. All I want to know, Senator Cotton, and I don't know if you know it, do multi-employer pensions include state pension funds, which are vastly underfunded, not because of COVID, but because of 30 years of purposeful underfunding of pension liabilities?
Well, Hugh, it wouldn't surprise if they do. I haven't seen what the Senate is proposing yet, because Chuck Schumer is keeping it under lock and key, but we've seen what's in the House bill. Less than a dime out of every dollar will go for coronavirus relief. This is about Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer paying off Democratic clients and patrons. Look, $350 billion for states and local governments that is going to be distributed in a way that favors poorly run Democratic states. States, by the way, that in many cases haven't even lost revenue over the last year. The New York Times has a big story about that today. Likewise, they're going to give $130 billion to teachers' unions. Only 5% of that money is going to go for education this year, when schools need to reopen and start educating their kids. Did you know, Hugh, that federal employees whose schools are closed, which is, say, for the most part, federal employees in Democratic-run states, are going to get a weekly subsidy for childcare? So all you poor working stiffs across America are only going to get $1,400 once under the Democratic bill. Federal employees whose kids' schools are closed are going to get that $1,400, and then they're going to get $1,400 every single week if this bill passes for 3 months.
You know, I couldn't actually believe that when I read it, because it's $21,000 per federal employee. And I know that the National Treasury Employees Union, I used to deal with all of them at OPM. I know they're powerful, but that's an astonishing and a stupid political move. Wait until people find out that federal employees whose jobs are not in danger, they are not in any danger whatsoever. You couldn't fire a federal employee if the earth moved under your feet. They're going to get $21,000. Senator Cotton, I can't believe it.
They've all been working, or maybe I should say working, in air quotes, since March. They haven't been going into their federal offices. They've been working from home. If they're in, say, Chicago, and there's some bean counter for federal bureaucracy there, they've been getting full income. They haven't had to go to the office for months. Their schools are still closed, and they're going to get $1,400 every single week because their kid's school is closed because they live in a Democratic city. Meanwhile, if you're a single mom trying to wait tables in Chicago and make ends meet, first off, your job has probably been closed. And second, you don't get that money because your kids' schools are closed. It's grossly unfair. This bill is almost entirely a payoff for Democratic constituencies, teachers' unions, state and local employees' unions, federal unions.
Now, Senator, I can think of 3 Democrats, Senator Sinema, Senator Manchin, and Senator Tester, whose states will be screwed by this bill as it emerged from the House. Have any of them indicated a thorough and comprehensive opposition and rewrite of the bill as ahead? We lost him. Now you must be pacing around the Capitol steps, Senator.
Is it better?
Yeah, that's better.
Hugh, let's just say there's some divisions inside the Democratic caucus, and I think Chuck Schumer is trying to work through those divisions. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully, they'll go back to the drawing board and be willing to sit down with us and pass a bill that actually is narrowly tailored and targeted to people who really need relief.
Senator Cotton, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it every week, and I appreciate your making the time available earlier rather than later so we can talk to Dan Blumenthal after the break. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
I